Welcome back to another episode from the Optimal Body Podcast. I'm Dr. Jen.
And I'm Dr. Dom.
And today we're talking about adjustments, manipulations. What do they mean? Why do we love them, seek them out, crave that pop? And do you need it?
All right, welcome back, everyone. So diving right into a topic that I think is a super hot topic, especially like in this last year when people couldn't go to their physical therapist, their chiropractor. It's that snap, crackle, and pop that you get from those adjustments and what is actually happening. And do we need those to get rid of our pain or to be able to put ourselves back in place?
I think this is such a good episode to really explain what it even is, the beliefs around it. And then we really want to empower you with the tools because like you just said, when you couldn't go see someone, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to try to figure out how to pop yourself? Are you supposed to just not get help for a year and feel in pain forever? And especially this idea of alignment. And I think, that's where we as physical therapists name it something different than the chiropractic community that uses the word adjustment, where physical therapists traditionally were trained in using the word manipulation, which is really just a high velocity mobilization. I remember even working, I think it was in Nevada when I was a student, and the physical therapy assistant could not go past level 4 mobilization. So they could not do the high thrust manipulation. And it's so funny because my body that is a little bit more hypermobile from gymnastics, someone can put me into the position and I will go. You will get a manipulation and adjustment out of my neck or out of my back. Like I was the person in class that everyone practiced on because you literally just put me in the position and I crack.
Yeah, it makes you feel good as a provider when you get someone to crack. And as a patient or a client, when you hear the crack, that's a huge thing that what that makes you think, oh, the crack, I heard it.
Right.
I must be better now.
I know, but that's what makes me laugh too. It's like, we talk about all these different levels and all these different adjustment versus mobilization versus manipulation versus, it's like essentially we're trying to get the same result, and we're going to talk about what that is an adjustment actually adjusting something into place. And I think that is the belief that we really want to start to break down. So really, what is that crack? What is that pop that you hear? What is that even?
Yeah, I think a lot of people approach it as, so a joint has a certain amount of space in it, right? When it's at its resting state. And when we do some sort of mobilization or manipulation of that space, we're going to change the amount of pressures in there, right? So say we increase the space in that joint, that's going to cause the tissues to stretch a little bit. And anytime we increase the amount of space in something, it reduces the pressure in that space. Chemistry, physics, a lot of science going on here. And a lot of the times what we hear then is that pop, which is just, a lot of people say it's like this release of gas or this release of this pressure that has built up that causes this popping noise.
Which is called a cavitation. That is that pop that you hear. And, we were taught in school too, you can do the end range positioning and you could do hold relaxations. You don't even have to go into the thrust mechanic of getting that manipulation or adjustment. And you can still provide the same result. And the reason that it kind of creates the same result is because we're just talking to the tissues. Everything we do is talking to the tissues. Anytime I put my hands on you, I'm talking to the tissues. So really when we get that cavitation, that sound that is happening, we're causing this reflexive relaxation of the system and all the muscles that kind of surround that area. And it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, I have more space. I can move. I have freedom in this joint.
I know that we've talked a lot about during quarantine, especially when quarantine started and a lot of clinics shut down. The message that we heard is, I'm helpless. I can't do this. I can't make myself feel better until I can get back in with my chiro or my physio or my
I need that
whoever.
adjustment. I need that thing. And I hope by understanding this definition of, what a joint really encapsulates, which is the joint capsule that holds all this fluid, which causes that stretch and that change of pressure, that cavitation to happen. So if it is a change of pressure, if it's a stretching of a joint capsule, if it's a a change in what's happening in the fluids, then we know that we're not actually adjusting something back into place. And I'm sorry to like break any, I'm sorry if that's what you've been told or that's what you believe. Like we do have a lot, we hold a lot of space for you here, right?
Yeah.
Because I think growing up too, I believed that. I believed that I was being put back into place, or something was happening, something was shifting in the vertebrae. And what the mind starts to believe is that these two vertebrae that are stacked on top of each other are completely slipped, right? And if I get that adjustment, I'm going to align it back into place. It's a mechanical force that is happening with that sound, with that pop. And all we're saying is that that's not true. The body is craving safety, always, unless we teach it something different. And so especially if you feel like you have chronic low back tightness, if, your low back feels like it's spasming on you, and you do love to go get that manipulation or that adjustment because it helps to relieve that pressure, and you feel like you're stacked, you can stand better, you can ease the pressure, because it allowed for those tissues for that moment to feel that relaxed state, to release that tension. But hopefully you've heard in our other podcasts, there's a way to do that on its own. And if the body is constantly craving that tightness, if it's constantly feeling the need to be tight, it's not just about stretching it. It's not just about adjusting it, but it's about creating safety in a different way. And a lot of times we do that through stability and strength.
Yeah. And that's where, again, if you're seeing somebody who does these types of techniques on you, it's not immediately and inherently bad.
No.
But if they're not giving you anything that you can do at home, if you can't immediately see them and run in and get the adjustment that allows you to do something similar at home, or immediately after they work on you, say, okay, go home and do these things because it's going to help teach your system to access that new slack we've given it, because these mobilizations are shown to, yes, in the immediate, bring down some of our pain sensitivities.
Yeah.
To allow us to have a little bit more range of motion. All these different things that then, amazing. Now let's take advantage of what that technique has done for us with some stability exercises, with some controlled mobility through those ranges, because that's when we're going to start typing the different message up into our brain to say, you can move through this range and access this range on your own. I think one thing that we saw when we were looking through just the studies and whatnot was that 3/4 of people actually have that belief that when they hear the crack, that it's realigning things, that crack itself is their bones being put back into position. And time again, with all of the best imaging studies, we are realizing that is not the case. That's far from the case. It's more so all of the things we just went over.
Yeah, it's just talking to your nervous system.
No, that's not the thing that's going to be our long-term ability to be able to have some self-maintenance, be able to be in your home and say, this is coming up for me. What can I do? For me, I have some issues with wanting to crack my neck or wanting to crack some different spots in my back, and I feel an immediate, ooh, yeah, there we go. I've released whatever pressure it was in the area. I can also, if I'm conscious and stop myself before I crack myself, position myself and take a big, huge inhale into my ribs and exhale, and now get that same feeling in my body. And that's something that I get to continue to come back around and remind myself about, that I don't need to crank my neck into its end range and get a pop. I just need to find more safety and stability, because it's generally happening when I'm running through a really stressful day and not giving my body any sort of attention. Yeah, and people who have stability issues or mobility, if you're hyper stable like I am in certain places, or if you're hyper mobile, both of those types of people can respond super well to hearing that crack and feeling that crack. But what was it? The Cirque woman said,
Dr. Jen Crane, she's amazing.
Yeah, and she was talking through how a lot of dancers or a lot of acrobats will have a lot of hip popping issues, and people will feel better when they do it. Well, if the underlying cause is that you have stability issues throughout that amazing range of motion that you have, then why don't we address that first?
Exactly. Coming from a gymnastics background, 100%, like
I see you do your hip cracks.
In our we'd be like standing in line waiting to go for a tumble pass or something, and you just lean and crack your hip. And it was just something that became habitual, something that became natural, that you did all the time. And so again, whether that's stress right before you're going to go tumble that pass, or just your habit within your body. And we even had a friend one time, and he did say actually his chiropractor helped him to realize that him feeling the need to crack his neck all the time or come back and get his neck adjusted was a stressor that he was actually experiencing, a psychological stressor that made him feel that that's what he needed. And he was such a revelation for him, right? And it was cool. You know, he got proper education to understanding why he was actually doing those things and realizing, oh, I don't actually mechanically, physiologically need that to feel something different.
So, you know, so a lot of the other studies that you'll see, they'll compare spinal manipulation against like other types of manual therapy, or they'll compare spinal manipulation and exercise versus just supervised exercise versus a home exercise program. And a lot of what we're finding in those types of studies is that, okay, spinal manipulation might have a marginal significant, you know, decrease in pain or whatever over other manual techniques, but long term, we don't see that last.
Yep.
If it's just like a one-time treatment or a 6-week period that they're getting treatment and then they stop, long-term follow-up, they'll see, oh, there's not a significant difference 5 years down the road because of that 6-week program. But my thing is, again, if you're only getting spinal manipulation or manual therapy in the first place, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's got to be something else in there once you get those techniques that I believe would be much better than all those. And I think that there's research to back that up as well.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, again, within like the challenges that we do or the Optimal Body membership, it's not just about physical movement. 100% that plays a huge role in repatterning these safety patterns within our body. Yes, and building that stability, building that support and that strength. However, we also have to address our mind. We get to address what's happening in how that, like, when am I thinking about the pain? When is that pain coming on? How is that related to what's happening in my day? How is that related to my stress? We also, we throw in your recipes, because the foods that we put in our body also can add stress to our system and make it work harder or allow it to process better. The sleep that we're getting, the people that we're, you know, again, we've talked about this in other podcasts when it relates to pain. Pain is not just mechanical. It's not just physical. And if you're just using an adjustment thinking that it's putting you back into place, that's not the answer.
Even as a provider, when I was seeing people regularly in the room, like, I know the people that I had the biggest impact on know that I didn't do anything for them physically. I helped them start to realize and perceive and process things differently by the way that I asked them questions and got them to think through things themselves. And those are the same people that still reach out to me this day, whether they were in Minnesota or whether they were someone I saw when I came here to Southern California. They're still the ones that will DM me saying like, hey, I had something come up and I just know that if I talk to you for 5 minutes, you can help me process through this differently. And again, I don't want people to know that they have to come talk to me. You always have that ability to, like you said, journal or do some directed journaling and thought to work through that. But that's where I generally bring people first before I put hands on anyone.
It's so important. And so really, reality of listening to all of this, right, is manipulation, adjustment. It's not bad. It's not going to give you arthritis if you keep cracking joints. However, why are you feeling the need for it, and how often? And I think starting to become real with that and observing that and observing your beliefs around it is going to be a huge process in actually helping you to start to feel something different in the body.
There you have it. Another deep dive on manipulations, the snaps, the cracks, how we fit that into our daily routine, and how it could potentially help you find your optimal body. Leave us any questions or comments below, any other topics that you might want us to cover, and we'll see you next time.